Yeah. So not a good week to be a Browns fan. In this week's show, we're going to talk about how the Browns got crushed by Houston, who their next head coach should be, and what do we have to look forward to for the Browns. Also, we're going to talk about the college football playoff rankings, and we're going to talk about some of those matchups that just came out. This and more on this week's unnamed, untitled, unsolicited, I don't know what the hell it is yet, post-weekend wrap-up show. My name's Quincy Carrier, and here it is. Yeah, so this show, it's just really just going to not have a name. Okay. The Browns went into Houston for a big game, playoff implications and all. I mean, there's many playoff implications you have at 4-6-1. But it was a big game. Browns coming off 2 straight wins, feeling good. The Texans coming off like 8 straight wins and feeling even better. And when the Browns went down to NRG Stadium this week to play the Texans dominated the Browns the whole game from start to finish. It wasn't really close at all at any point. This was a beatdown. Couple things to take away. One, we're going to talk about Baker Mayfield. Not his best game. Not a good game at all. Threw 3 interceptions in the first half. And these were bad interceptions, a couple of them. Just bad throws, bad reads. And 1 touchdown. Threw for almost 400 yards. But again, just an up and down day for Baker. Came out in the second half a lot better, a lot more focused, a lot more concise with the ball. That looks good for next week, but disappointing performance by Baker Mayfield. Now, one of the other things that needs to be addressed is that there are some real defensive woes going on with this team. Defensively, this team has had an issue all year with stopping the run. Specifically stopping the run up the middle, which is kind of surprising because last year's team, they went 0-16, but they were really good at interior run stuffing. This year, just not as consistent with it. They look like they get gashed easily up the middle. I don't know if that's due to linebacker play, or if it's just the fact that they don't have some of the heavier guys on that line as consistently as they did last year. I know they cut Jamie Meter and Danny Shelton, 2 big old dudes. And that might have really affected their ability to stop the run up the middle, as Larry Ogunjobi's a great pass rushing defensive tackle. But he's just not big enough to occupy 2 linemen like Danny Shelton was able to. So it almost has me thinking that the Browns should have maybe kept Jamie Meter. I like Jamie Meter. We should have kept Jamie Meter. Denzel Ward went out of this game with a concussion. And when Denzel Ward is out, it really shows because this team just does not cover well with him off the field. And I know this team's depth has been severely cut at the cornerback position with Terrence Mitchell getting injured early in the year. And other injuries happening in the secondary. I think this proves that, this Browns team is an offseason away from being a true division playoff contender. I think they just need more depth peppered in certain positions. I think they also need just a couple more playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. And I think they can get all that in the draft and free agents. They don't need the big pieces. They got the big pieces. They got the quarterback. They got the pass rusher. They got the corner. Right now, they just need to get, the smaller pieces, the backup pieces, the depth pieces, maybe even a piece or 2 on the offensive line. But they've gotten the big ones. They've gotten the hard ones. Now we just got to fill it out. I think John Dorsey is more than capable of filling out this roster. So, offseason away, next year should be really good. But we'll take what we get this year. And let me know in the comment section down below, Browns fans, what you think the Browns should do in free agency or in the draft to improve the team. The next bit of news that kind of came obvious to me while watching the Browns game is that Greg Williams probably ain't going to be the head coach next year. And this might not end as well as we hoped. Now, I know after the 2 weeks, the Browns won. We were feeling really good about Greg Williams, but, now I think it became a lot harder for him to keep that job. I want to talk about some of the possibilities for the future for the Browns. Now, one of the pieces of news that just came out is that Mike McCarthy just got fired from the Green Bay Packers. I can see John Dorsey thinking of this being kind of similar to the Andy Reid situation he had in Kansas City. Now, the difference is John Dorsey didn't bring in Andy Reid, so it remains to be seen if that's something he wants to emulate. And I think there are two other guys who are former head coaches that would really make sense for the Browns just because of their personalities. That's Bruce Arians and that's Jim Harbaugh, who might become available. And I think that's purely because they just have personalities that fit this young team and that would be helpful for this young team. And I think that matters a great deal. Now let's talk about Lincoln Riley. He's the head coach out of Oklahoma. He's done a great job there. I just don't think he's going to make that jump this year. I would also warn people about following the head coaching trend. It never really ends well when you follow the hot trend. Because right now the hot trend is Sean McVay, the young offensive guru guy that came in and fixed everything. Well, not everybody can be Sean McVay. And the Browns have fallen victim to this trap multiple times. I want them to stay away from it. We fell victim for it the first time the whole Patriots coach thing went around. And then in 2009, we fell for it again. We have also fallen victim to the defensive coach, the young offensive-minded coach, the hot head coaching candidate. And that's the second thing I want everybody to kind of be wary of. Josh McDaniels is essentially the same exact thing that Hugh Jackson was. A hot head coaching candidate that the league really wants to push out there, that's had a time being a head coach before, semi-successful, ended in turmoil. He went back to his home team. For McDaniels, the Patriots. For Hugh Jackson, the Bengals. Hibernated for a while. Now he's back on the scene. He's the hottest name. Stay away from Josh McDaniels. He wasn't good the first time. He's probably not going to be much better this time. If he wants to be in New England, let him. Now, another name that I've heard thrown around a lot that I actually like, familiar to Browns fans, John DeFilippo. I felt like he was better than a lot of people gave him credit for when he was the offensive coordinator for Mike Pettin the year after Kyle Shanahan left for Atlanta. He got a few good games out of Johnny Manziel, which, hey, it's a hell of a feat. That is a hell of a feat. He made Johnny Manziel look like an actual quarterback for a couple games, and that's a hell of a feat. Now I want to jump into some college football news. The college football playoff rankings came out this week, and all the matchups for the playoff games have been set. It's going to be 1 versus 4, which is going to be Alabama versus Oklahoma. 2 versus 3, which is going to be Clemson and Notre Dame, which has virtually been the same for a while now. And I feel like, and I know this is not going to be a popular committee because I get most of my views from Ohio, but I feel like they got it right as far as the first 4 goes. I think there's some issues after that, but we'll get into that later. But as far as the first 4, I think that's right. I think Oklahoma versus Alabama is the matchup that is going to be the most interesting, the most entertaining. And it's the team that deserves to be there. They won their conference. They avenged their only loss. And they earned it. I think I might have been drinking that RJ Young juice because I think Oklahoma can upset Alabama in this game this year. I feel like they have the perfect team to do it. I think Alabama is much weaker in the secondary than people know. I think Alabama's defense hasn't really been tested by something like the Oklahoma offense. And I feel like Oklahoma can get this game to be a shootout. And if they do that, they're going to score, they're going to win. Now, there are other controversies with the rankings. 2-loss Georgia, number 5 over a 1-loss conference champion Ohio State team. And 2-loss Michigan over an undefeated conference champion UCF. What those placements tell me about what the committee thinks is that Ohio State and UCF, no matter what scenario, we're never going to get into playoffs. For Ohio State, I think it's 3 things that kept them out. The first being just inconsistency all year. They just haven't looked good consistently enough to pass the quote-unquote eyeball test. Um, the second thing is obviously the blowout loss to Purdue hurt them a lot. But I think what the final nail in the playoff coffin was for Ohio State was going to overtime with Maryland and having Maryland be a drop pass away from winning that game. And I think the committee wasn't going to let Ohio State get away with that no matter what they did. In UCF, your problems are much less of your own creation. Your problem is that you're just not a Power 5 school. And if you're not a Power 5 school to this committee, you don't matter. It doesn't matter what you've done. You won't be respected by this committee. That's what they're telling me. And I'm not saying that UCF should have been in the playoffs. I'm not saying that they would beat Alabama. But I think they deserve a lot more respect than people in the media and people in the committee have given them. UCF has done nothing but win all the games on their schedule for 2 years. They beat in their New Year's Six game, SEC New Year's Six eligible Auburn. But yet, whenever the conversation comes up for UCF on if they could compete with one of these Power 5 schools in the playoff, they just get written off and laughed at as if they just aren't able to compete at that level because the other schools have better talent. And yeah, that's true. The Power 5 schools, they probably have better athletes. But what I think goes unmentioned when they say that, UCF has won all their games for the last 2 years. You know what that means? This is a team that executes at a high level. And in this game of football, when you execute at a high level, it makes up for athletic deficiencies. It allows for upsets to happen. If you don't believe me, look at North Dakota State's record against the Power 5 schools. They're an FCS school that should have no reason to compete or even come close to a Power 5 school. But they consistently win because they're one of the best executing teams in the country. And when you execute well as a football team, it gives you a better shot, even when you're athletically overmatched. And that's what people don't consider. People act like UCF would just get boat raced out of any game they play with the Power 5 opponent. I hope they beat LSU. I want them to show the world that they're better than this phony, propped up artificially LSU team that the committee has pushed in our face the entire year. They haven't belonged in the top 10. They didn't belong in the top 5 when they were in there. LSU was never a good team at any point in this year. They beat Georgia. That's cool. But Purdue beat Ohio State. That don't make them a top 5 team either. So I really look forward to watching the Fiesta Bowl and seeing what happens because I think UCF is going to win that game. Now, that's going to be it for this week's Untitled post-week wrap-up show. What I really want you guys to do is leave me questions down below. I'm going to use them for a video on Friday. It's going to be a question-answer type of video. So please leave those questions down below so I can make that video for you guys on Friday. As always, it's going to be a Worst Take episode this week. I've been a bit under the weather, so hopefully I can get it all done on time, but I'm going to try to get everything out there at the right time. Again, thank you guys for watching. Last week, we had just reached 1,000 videos when I posted up that last video about Baker Mayfield triggering international media. Now, we are almost at 2,000 subscribers, guys. This is awesome. The channel is growing at such a great rate. I just want to keep it going and keep giving you guys what you want. So hit that subscribe button. Keep that positive momentum going. My name's Quincy Carrier, and this is the unnamed, untitled, unwarranted, unsolicited sports show kind of post-weekend wrap-up thingy. Have a good week.